All right, welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live on this Wednesday morning. About 5 minutes out from the opening bell as we get second quarter earnings season really ramping up here. A couple of big names to run through. Brian Sozzi, let's start with what we saw from Coca-Cola out last night. The company coming out beating on its top line, beating on its bottom line. I think a theme we're going to see a lot as we get into second quarter earnings season, much like we saw in the first quarter. But Coke continuing to really see a nice turnaround globally, given the company's breadth.
Yeah, it's definitely a different quarter for Coca-Cola compared to the first quarter. And then, of course, the quarter this time last year, it's just a different company as more people go back to sporting events, restaurants. Those are key businesses for Coca-Cola. Those away from home categories could represent more than 40% of their business in most cases. But I think why you're seeing the stock up here in the pre-market, up about 3%, they came out and they raised their guidance. So for this year, they're looking for organic revenue growth of 12 to 14%. That is pretty good. They were looking for about a high single-digit increase before. They also raised their earnings outlook for the year as well. And for them, I think they're just sending a message that we're starting to see restaurants come back. We're starting to see sporting events coming back. People are still buying lots of food for their home, and they're trying to bake that into their guidance. I will note this, too. If there is concern here, they mentioned twice in asynchronous global recovery. They mentioned it twice, and I think that could be them saying, you know what, we are seeing the COVID Delta variant impact certain locations overseas. Let's just be a little cautious here.
All right. Asynchrony, a new theme for second quarter earnings as we get into the heart of it here. Also, the company's CEO, Jim Quincy, on another competitor network, let's say, saying that volumes for the business, he said, just a, quote, whisker shy of 2019 levels. And, of course, for so many businesses, as we were just discussing with Netflix and others, 2019, really the benchmark here, and seeing a lot more companies just come out and give us the comp instead of making everybody back into what that two-year stack might look like. Let's go over to another major airline. So we've seen so far Delta with its results out. Southwest has come out with its results. Now United out here. Company losing, as we see here on the bottom line, $434 million in the quarter. But Julie Hyman talking about profitability in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that, it seems like, is leading investors to overlook the fact that the loss was a bit worse than estimated last quarter. So the promises of these profits in the future. And by the way, it's adjusted pre-tax profit. So just to make that clear, that's what the company is predicting, not just net profit flat out. It's adjusted pre-tax profit. But CEO Scott Kirby of United did say that this was a turning point for the company. What's also interesting here is that this is happening even as we're seeing fuel prices go higher. The company said cost per gallon of fuel was up 67% in the second quarter. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward, even as demand increases. What's going to happen with the cost for these airlines? Another note here is capacity, right? One of the things that we are also going to be watching as travel comes back, as the airlines start to recover, are they going to be able to have capacity discipline here? In other words, are they going to react to this return in demand by just adding lots and lots of flights and thereby diminishing their profitability? It's too early to talk about that, but it's something to look ahead to. And the company said it's going to fly 74% of its 2019 level capacity in the third quarter. So again, promising sign at this point when you look at those capacity numbers.
Yeah, and again, we're seeing the stock up this morning, but I think just to maybe put in context the damage that's been done to the airline industry from a stock market perspective, again, a financial perspective through the pandemic, at 46 and some change, 47, let's call it, in pre-market, the stock's at its highs that it hit in 2007, ahead of the financial crisis. If you look at the recovery from that, the stock is back to 2014 levels. Now, shares were lower than 47 when you had really the price of oil collapsing and all kinds of problems with the global economy, following from that, 15, 16. But again, this is a stock that was trading in the hundreds ahead, or, let's call it high 80s, 90s into and towards $100 per share ahead of the pandemic. So here at 47, it's had a very nice recovery off of its lows. We have seen the airlines become a big part of a recovery trade. We have seen that really, Sozzi, be a favorite of retail investors. But I think that when you see this action, it is worth keeping in context the damage that's been done to long-term United shareholders.
Is that a head and shoulders pattern?
Doesn't look like a head and shoulders to me, but we'll check in with Jared Blickery in the next. We'll go through. We really should do a little more of the technical. Like, what are the ones we look for? Head and shoulders, cup and handle.
I like the cup and
handle is really my favorite pattern that the technicians like to bring in. So again, we're about 30 seconds out from the opening bell here on this Wednesday. We're looking at a mixed open. Dow and S&P futures are pointing to gains as we get into today's session. NASDAQ futures are the laggard. This coming off a big rally in yesterday's session, really accentuated by what we saw in the small caps, value names. The Russell 2000 yesterday gaining almost 3%. That as the 10-year yield came back up, about 7 or 8 basis points or so. And there we see live pictures from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. This Wednesday of trading officially open for business. And again, we'll check in with Jared Blickery in a few minutes here as we get through today's opening bell. Let's talk a little bit, Brian Sozzi, about our still parent company for now, though pending sale of our part of the business. That, of course, Verizon, out with a better than expected quarter, as we've seen from a lot of companies. And postpaid, like people actually signing up for cell phones, seem to be a big driver for Verizon. And in fairness to us, we are but a small, tiny speck on the Verizon enterprise.
I'll get to that in a second, but I think the Verizon quarter here strengthened, I would say, versus the first quarter. Ultimately, I would say a bullish tell on the potential quarter coming from an Apple. This is a 5G supercycle. We're in it. Your friend Dan Ives is always promoting the 5G supercycle theory. I think you saw that in this quarter. And you noted media. Got to give our team a shout out here. Verizon Media, $2.1 billion in sales in the quarter, up 50% year over year, up 13% from the second quarter of 2019. Of course, just a better run business, but also ad spending has come back very aggressively. You've seen the BuzzFeed IPO. That's about to happen. You've seen the Discovery AT&T deal happening. A lot's happening in the media space.
Yay, us. I also wanted to mention one more thing when it comes to those postpaid ads. Verizon, in part, got that improvement in subscribers by paying for them effectively, by offering promotions. So after that miss in the first quarter on those postpaid subscriber additions, the company decided to get promotional, offering as much as $1,000 to customers for trade-ins. Also, kind of offered some various promotions in order to get people to sign up for 5G service in particular. So that's something to keep in mind, too, that Verizon has these levers that it can pull when it does need to try to juice some of that subscriber growth. And again, to Brian's point, we'll see how the Apple growth ends up also juicing the numbers.
Just exciting, right, to be part of a fast-growing unit as we look for a potential parental change here in the coming. I don't know. I guess more people are paying attention to this, and they're seeing the three of us and like, oh, do we want to invest in these guys? Do we like them? Do we not like them?
They like us.
Right? This is great. This is great. Everybody's happy. All right, let's quickly talk about Harley Davidson coming out with its latest quarter as well on this busy morning. And Brian Sozzi, I know you're a recent buyer of a car. Did you also buy a motorcycle? Because their sales doubled in the most recent quarter.
No motorcycles.
On motorcycles, obviously, we see the revenue not quite that.
No motorcycles for me. I will leave that up to our producer, Nick Monti, who is a big Harley Davidson fan here. But North America retail sales, like you mentioned, up 43% year over year, but up 5% versus second quarter of 2019. I love these 2019 comparisons. I am surprised to see the stock down a little bit here. If anything, I would point to overseas weakness. This remains a company very much in transition with a new CEO. They're pulling back on some European markets here, so maybe some concern on the street if they can sustain what they are seeing here in the U.S., modest recovery, and not really just fall off a cliff overseas.
Guys, just like I'm really curious to see how the Ford F-150 electric version goes, the Lightning goes, I'm really curious to see how Harley is going to do with its new suite of electric bikes, a company that is traditionally known for the sound of a Harley, right? That is pretty distinctive. And for people on Harleys who give the little sign to each other when they drive by each other, what's going to happen when these new electric bikes sort of join the club, so to speak? And there are a couple of new ones, right? The Livewire 120, which is an electric bike, the Sportster S, which is a lightweight bike as well. So, those are two new bikes. I don't know if both of them are electric. But in any case, We'll see how those electric ones do. What were you going to say, Brian?
No, the Livewire, Julie, they released it about a year and a half ago. It is an expensive bike. It's a race bike. If you hop on it, it will rip all of our faces off. I mean, it is a race bike, and that's why it hasn't sold very well. They have to come out, I think, with more approachable electric bikes that actual human beings could drive, and the Livewire is ultimately not for us.
I guess my question is, can you get the same kind of muffler tone on an electric bike? Like, can you announce your presence rolling down the street on a couple of Harleys, but it's not gas powered? There's got to be technology.
It would have to be fake. It would have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't.
That's fine.
It would. Yeah.
But there's got to be
grow the Harley mustache, get the bike, and let us know and report back.
There's got to be. Yeah, I'm not growing a mustache over here. There's got to be a way to make that work because that seems from a distance that seems the appeal. Hands up, you kick the thing.
Take the Instagram photo with the other guy.
You're sitting you got your feet up high. It's a whole. Yeah, it's a whole.
We're broing
thing.
out.
I'm not sure it's a bro